He asked me to check my phone. I refused. He just said, okay. Then the next day this happened. I don't understand people who say you are allowed to check your partner's phone and he is allowed to check yours. What does that mean? Is there any privacy in this world? Hey, there is a reason we call phones my phone or your phone. Well, this phone checking request destroyed my life, and I can't find a way to fix things with my fiancé. Reddit guys, I am E. At the age of 28, I found myself deeply in love and engaged to what I believed was the man of my dreams. Unfortunately, that blissful chapter of my life came to a heartbreaking end, all because I set a boundary regarding my privacy. I simply did not want him to go through my phone, which I consider a sacred space that deserves respect. This seemingly small disagreement escalated into a much larger issue that ultimately shattered our relationship. To make matters even worse, he wasn't just my partner. He was also the best friend of my boss. When our engagement fell apart, he didn't just walk away. He took it a step further and made sure that I lost my job as well. Now, I find myself in a precarious situation, jobless, and trying to navigate the aftermath of a betrayal that goes beyond just a broken engagement. Can you even begin to comprehend the emotional turmoil I'm experiencing? All of this turmoil stems from my belief in the importance of privacy and the right to keep certain aspects of my life, like my phone, personal and secure. John was 29 years old and worked as an architect. He was so good at his job and also a very emotional and romantic guy. We first crossed paths when he was 24 and I was just 23, and now, after being together for 5 wonderful years, we were on the verge of taking the next big step in our relationship, marriage. During our time together, we had built a multitude of dreams, envisioning a future filled with love, adventure, and shared experiences. It's difficult for me to comprehend what could have prompted him to behave in such an unexpected manner. What could have possibly led him to act in a way that contradicts everything we had built together? The confusion and heartache I feel over the situation are overwhelming, especially considering the strong bond we had forged and the plans we had made for our future. Ours was love at first sight. I knew I wanted to be with him as soon as I saw him. Before we got engaged, we had a beautiful love story. I had never been the romantic girl, but he made me change and transformed me into another person. Whenever I encountered him, he always seemed to have a rose or some type of flower in his hand, which added a charming touch to our interactions. Additionally, he took the time to plan incredibly romantic dates that were thoughtfully curated and filled with delightful surprises. Throughout our time together, we managed to cultivate a relationship that was devoid of toxicity, promoting understanding and respect between us at all times. It was refreshing to be in such a healthy and nurturing partnership, where love and affection were always at the forefront. But suddenly things changed for the worse. He started getting very jealous and very controlling of my life. He started acting like an invader. I distinctly remember one particular day when I unexpectedly ran into my ex-boyfriend while out and about. I greeted him with a friendly hi, and we exchanged a few pleasantries. He inquired about how my life was going and suggested that we should grab a coffee sometime to catch up. That innocent encounter seemed to trigger something in my fiancé as he began to act strangely afterward. He started bombarding me with various questions regarding my past relationship with my ex. He wanted to know the nature of our connection and why I continued to maintain any form of contact with him after our breakup. Despite having explained this to him countless times, I reiterated that we had been very young during our relationship and both made our fair share of mistakes. I emphasized that he had always remained a friend to me, which was why I felt comfortable talking to him. While I wouldn't say I had a close friendship with my ex, I simply couldn't ignore him when we crossed paths. It was just a matter of being polite and acknowledging someone I had shared a part of my life with. It all began after we got engaged. Prior to that moment, he had never exhibited any toxic behavior. To summarize our story briefly, after dating for 3 years, he proposed to me, and we celebrated with an intimate engagement party. Following that joyous occasion, we made the decision to move in together. However, I was taken aback when his demeanor suddenly changed, and I couldn't pinpoint where this new behavior was coming from. Then I started working for a company that was owned by his best friend. I was a financial manager. He actually didn't know that I applied to that job, so he did not find the job for me. After I started working there, I found out that my boss was his best friend, and well, I was okay with it, but he was again getting very jealous. Every time that I got a phone call or a text message, he was running to get my phone before me. To that point, we did not have the passcodes of each other's phone or social media. I could not get a call or message without starting to explain to him who it was and why they were calling me. This issue became very frustrating to me. I was used to having my own freedom and privacy, and after all, he was not like that at the beginning. One of the most challenging and frustrating aspects of this situation was when he decided to go through my friends list on both Instagram and Facebook. He took it upon himself to ask me to delete certain male friends, which felt incredibly intrusive. Among those he wanted me to remove was my ex-boyfriend. I found myself in a difficult position, trying once again to explain to him my perspective. I made it clear that my ex-partner is an integral part of my past, a person with whom I shared a substantial chapter of my life. Together, we navigated through a myriad of experiences, some joyful and exhilarating and others challenging and painful. To me, it felt deeply disrespectful to simply erase him from my social media presence, as if our time together had never occurred. I believed that keeping that connection was not about holding on to lingering emotions or unresolved feelings. Rather, it was an acknowledgement of the significant history we built together. His request to cut ties in that way struck me as a lack of understanding regarding the profound meaning those relationships held for me. It fostered a sense of tension between us that was difficult to manage. I felt caught in a conflict between his wishes and my own values, which made the situation even more complicated. The very idea of erasing someone who had once been such a pivotal figure in my life seemed to diminish the importance of our shared journey, and I couldn't help but feel that our past deserved to be recognized, even if it had come to an end. Can you imagine that my fiancé was torturing himself so much just because he was jealous? It was a sick and toxic jealousy that was destroying both of us. I never used to hide anything from him, but I do think that privacy is and must be very important to each one of us. I had no personal space anymore. I could not go out without having to answer many questions that he made. Like he was an investigator, and I could have committed any crime. Many of you may start judging me because if I was clean and I didn't do anything, why was I hiding my passcodes from him? It is a matter of values and principles which I respect. I respected his space and privacy, and he was the person I loved the most in the whole world. The fact that I didn't want to give him my passcodes does not mean that I didn't love him, but the situation started getting more and more toxic. I remember one night I was standing outside in the balcony of our apartment and I was talking to my mother and sister, and I noticed him standing inside near the door and hearing me what I was saying. I got very furious. How could he do such a thing? Again, he was violating my space and my privacy. Hey, I don't know about you, but I call it violence. I went inside and he immediately went to the sofa and acted like he was watching TV. Then he asked me, "Who were you talking to?" "You know very well who I was talking to, since you were listening on the door," I replied. He acted surprised and told me he was just looking outside and was not listening to my conversation. And again, asked me who I was talking to. I told him I was talking to my mother and sister, and he asked, "Why do you talk outside?" Was he serious? I was going crazy, and I could not stay calm anymore. I told him I needed my privacy, and the communication between me and my family does not always have to be in front of him. I asked him what I had done to make him act like that with me, and he told me that he didn't like me talking to my ex-boyfriend and other men. "For God's sake, what other men am I talking to?" I said, "My colleagues, my friends." "Yeah, your friends and colleagues," he said. I told him that they were part of my life. I found myself in a situation where I had to work closely with certain people, and effective communication was essential. However, despite these obligations, everything around me felt utterly perplexing and chaotic. I made a conscious effort to remain calm and engage in a conversation with him, primarily because of the deep love I had for him and my genuine desire to maintain our relationship. Yet, as the days went by, I felt my life unraveling more and more, and with each passing moment, the weight of my worries grew heavier. I was filled with anxiety at the thought of confiding in my colleagues or friends about what I was going through. I had expressed my love for him repeatedly, assuring him that there was no reason for him to feel insecure or worried. Despite my reassurances, he continued to voice his suspicions. He pointed out that my tendency to keep my phone hidden from him was indicative of something more sinister, suggesting that I must be hiding something or engaging in activities behind his back. This accusation was incredibly hurtful and completely unfounded, as I had done nothing to betray his trust or jeopardize our relationship. The disconnect between my intentions and his perceptions only added to the turmoil that was consuming my life. I didn't know what to do anymore or how to talk to him. I knew I loved him, but this relationship was consuming my life. So yeah, things kept going like that. One other night I was going out with my friends, but I forgot my phone at home. For my good luck, as soon as I went downstairs and got in the car of my friends, I wanted to call one of our other friends. I saw that I didn't have my phone, so I went back home to take it. I got inside the apartment, and I found my fiancé with my phone in his hands trying to unlock it, and then it was blocked because he had entered the wrong passcode so many times. Again, how could he do that? I asked what you were doing, and he told me I had to give him my passcode and he had to see my phone so he could be calm then and everything would be normal again. I told him I had to go and we would talk again the next day. He asked me if he could come with me, and I told him no because it was a girls' night. But again, I told him that I loved him and I would never look at someone else. I also told him I did not want to lose him and asked him to not destroy what we had. We were planning to marry in the summer of that year, and I had so many dreams that I had built with him, but now everything was feeling like falling apart because of his jealousy, because of a phone. Perhaps I needed to allow him to go through my phone, but doing so would signify a profound lack of respect for myself and a violation of the boundaries I had carefully established. I took comfort in knowing that my conscience was clear. I hadn't done anything to betray him. In fact, the thought of being unfaithful had never crossed my mind. He was, without a doubt, the love of my life, and I envisioned a future together filled with happiness and companionship. However, I firmly believe that love must be rooted in trust, and that trust is a fundamental pillar that cannot be compromised. Without it, any relationship would be built on shaky ground, and I was not willing to sacrifice my self-respect or the integrity of our relationship for the sake of his insecurities. Ultimately, love flourishes in an environment of mutual trust and respect, and I was determined to uphold those values, even if it meant facing uncomfortable situations. However, that night I went out with my friends, and I decided I would get drunk and forget about everything that was going on in my life at that moment. So that is what I did. I went out and had so much fun, and I didn't even look at my phone for a second. I went home very late, and my husband was sleeping. Again, I did not do anything wrong. I just had fun with my girls. The next day he asked me if we could talk, and I said okay. It has been a long time since we had a significant date together, so he asked me to go on a dinner together that day. That is what we did. We got ready and went to the place where we first met. I was thinking maybe he had changed his mind, and now things would go back as they used to be in the past. But then he told me, I brought you here just to remind you how much I loved you, and how much I love you still, and how much I want to build a family with you. But those thoughts in my mind won't leave me alone, so please just stop talking to your ex-boyfriend. He told me that he knew that he was an important part of my life, and we shared a part of the life together, and went through things together. But he was in my past, so there was no reason for me to still talk to him. He asked me to please understand him, and he was talking in a calm way. He was very logical and seemed like he was in pain. I looked into his eyes and got his hands in mine and told him that I would do this for him. So yeah, I cut every kind of contact that I had with my ex-boyfriend, but then something happened. He tried to contact me and asked me if I did something wrong. I did not reply to him, just acted like I didn't see his message. But the next day he came to my work and asked me in person what he did. I told him he didn't do anything wrong, but my situation was like that, and I didn't want to keep in touch with him anymore. In that moment, I felt a mix of emotions. I took a deep breath and explained to him that he hadn't done anything wrong per se, but rather, my circumstances had changed significantly. I communicated that I was in a place where I needed to prioritize my own mental and emotional health, and that meant I could no longer maintain any form of contact with him. I made it clear that my decision was not a reflection of his actions, but rather a necessary step for me to move forward. It was a difficult conversation, but I hoped he would understand where I was coming from. As I arrived home after a long day at work, I immediately sensed that my fiancé was already aware of something significant that had occurred that day. It turned out that he had found out about my ex-boyfriend's unexpected visit to my workplace and the fact that I had engaged in a conversation with him. Rather than displaying any signs of anxiety or jealousy, my fiancé approached the topic with a calm demeanor. He looked at me earnestly and asked why my ex had come to my job and what his intentions were during that encounter. Feeling it was important to be honest with him, I took a deep breath and explained the situation. I told him the truth. My ex-boyfriend had reached out because he was curious about why I had chosen to cut off communication with him. I could see the wheels turning in my fiancé's mind as he processed this information, and I hoped that my transparency would help reinforce the trust in our relationship. Instead, he asked me to check my phone, and I refused. He said okay, and the next day I found myself jobless and also homeless. We didn't discuss, and he didn't do anything. He just told me I would go out for a drink with one of his friends. Little did I know that he was meeting my boss and asking him to fire me. That night, he did not sleep in our room. I woke up in the morning and he had already gone to work. I prepared for work, and as soon as I got there, the human resources manager gave me a document and told me I was fired. I asked why, and he told me everything was explained in the document that he gave me. There was written that I had broken the rules of the company, like going late to work almost every day. However, little did I know that he had gone to see his best friend and take revenge on me by asking his best friend to fire me. Certainly, there were indeed instances when I arrived late to work, but I can assure you that those occasions were not frequent enough to warrant my termination. In fact, I observed that several of my colleagues had a much higher rate of tardiness compared to me, yet they continued to hold their positions without any issues, while I was the one who ended up getting fired. It feels quite unfair when you think about it. The reason for my dismissal was directly linked to my fiancé, who believed that I was being unfaithful simply because I refused to allow him access to my phone. In reality, my intention was merely to safeguard my personal privacy, not to hide anything from him. It's frustrating to consider how a misunderstanding about privacy led to such a significant consequence in my professional life and also my personal life. I tried to call my fiancé, but he didn't pick up. Then, crying, I went back to our apartment. He knew what was going to happen, so he was waiting for me there. As soon as I opened the door, I saw him getting some luggage to the door. I asked him, "Where are you going?" And he replied, "I am not going anywhere. You are getting out of my house." How could he do something like that? He said he didn't want to talk anymore with me because I didn't even deserve his words anymore. He told me that now I was free and I could keep my privacy and personal space so safe. I asked him if he was the one that got me fired, and he said yes. "Yes, you deserved it," he said. Hearing his words felt like a dagger to my heart, and tears streamed down my face as I grappled with the intensity of my emotions. Despite my pain, he remained indifferent to my suffering. I poured my heart out to him, telling him just how much I loved him, desperately hoping that it would resonate with him. But he simply replied that I needed to reflect on my feelings and consider the implications of my love before we had reached such a critical point in our relationship. It was a devastating moment for me, and I felt utterly lost. I reached out to him, hoping to have a meaningful conversation, because I firmly believed that it was crucial for us not to let our relationship crumble over trivial matters like passcodes and social media issues. I wanted to emphasize how much our connection meant to me, and that we should be able to communicate openly about our feelings and concerns. However, he responded by saying that he had made numerous attempts to talk to me in the past, but felt that I hadn't truly listened to him during those moments. He expressed his frustration and declared that he was done with our relationship and with any further discussions between us. So that was it. I was left jobless and homeless. I went back to my sister's apartment, hoping I would find a job first, and then an apartment for myself. There could be a strong debate about how I could let my fiancé go through my phone and how I did the right thing by not letting him check my phone. I strongly believe that privacy is sacred, but to this point, I wish I had allowed him to check my phone. I would not be in this situation now. Waiting for your suggestions and advice. Stay safe. Much love, X. Update. Hey guys, hope everyone is doing fine. I was surprised at how many of you supported me. Many of you asked how my life was now going and if I had made any attempt to get back to my ex-fiancé. I have a job now, but I am still living with my sister. About my ex-fiancé. Yeah, I tried reaching out to him because I thought we could work things out, but he was not okay with it. He never accepted to talk to me, and he is completely out of my life. Many of you said that I was right to protect my privacy and space, and I am so thankful because there are moments when I feel so bad, and I think that it was my fault. My life was destroyed, and now I am rebuilding it. I still believe in my principles, and I still have the same boundaries. And also, I still can't believe how someone who says they love you can completely destroy your life. I will never understand that, but I will be okay. You guys should be careful when you choose your partner because, as you can see, they can destroy your life in a few minutes, and it will take months and years to rebuild what they have destroyed. Thank you for taking the time to read my story. Much love, E.